do we go from here?
This is our first episode of Where Do We Go From Here, African Americans in the 21st Century. And as we shall, we're going to do our first episode on the great Martin Luther King.
The great
Martin
Dr.
Luther King. Martin Luther King. And so Anton is probably one of the most educated black men I've ever met in my life, especially when it comes to contemporaries.
Wow.
Shout out to you.
Thank you, sister.
And so I'm going to get a couple of questions for you because I feel like I can learn so much from you and our audience can learn so much. I know that there's a lot of information in that wonderful head of yours,
Yes.
so I'm going to whittle it down to...
Say, squeeze it. Right.
Exactly. So if there were three things that you think that we need to know now about MLK, what would those three things be?
The first thing would be that Dr. King, he didn't die in 1963.
What?
So much of what we know about Dr. King is tapered off with his I Have a Dream speech.
Right.
However, this is a defining moment in American history because they also marched for jobs and justice.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. King didn't walk with so many people that supported him and come to the foot of the Lincoln Monument to talk about a dream that he had.
Right.
Dr. King came to make sure that he was addressing the economic injustice as well as the racial injustice in the United States.
Right.
But there's a trajectory that goes on after 63 when he starts to see that the legislation is not moving fast enough.
Right.
So there's a trajectory in which he's moving more towards what would be defined as Black power.
Right. Because we tend to think of it separate, right?
Yeah.
There was the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement, and you got MLK on one end, and you got Malcolm X on the other, just like we had W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. So you're telling me that MLK kind of transitioned, or was it more of like he spoke a higher truth? Well, what was it?
I mean, all we have to do is look at the individuals who were surrounding him.
Mm-hmm.
You have Stokely Carmichael.
Right.
You have Willie Ricks.
And a little bit, some people might not know those people, so break it down for them.
They were individuals who were in SNCC. It was
Which is Student Nonviolent
Coordinating Committee.
Right.
And it was actually Willie Ricks who in Greenwood, Mississippi was like, hit him, baby, hit him with it.
With
and
what?
Black Power.
Oh.
Black Power. So when
what?
Stokely Carmichael was saying Black Power and
Yeah.
people are chanting and he provokes them, Willie Rick is behind that. But these are individuals who, when you look at the pictures, they're surrounding Dr. King.
Right.
They may have disagreements with his methodology and his ideology, but it evolves. But also, the late, great Marion Barry, he's also there, too.
Yeah.
And we see the cultural identity and the politics that he brought to Washington, D.C.
Right.
So Dr. King, he's instrumental within that space and that bubble, too, because you don't see the trajectory that goes from
Right.
the civil rights movement to
now.
the Black Power movement without Dr. King as being sort of a conduit
Right.
in order for these various ideologies and individuals to
manifest.
I guess, oscillate
Yeah.
around one another.
Right. It's kind of like we, especially being 80s babies, like we got the postage stamp, you got like the great images and everybody's like, MLK, woohoo.
Yeah.
Every January we get to, because we have a national holiday. We didn't have a national holiday before, right?
Right.
So the image that we have of MLK is like this. But you're saying is like if we pan out, there's a lot more to him and to the story and to the message. So what's the second thing you want us to know about him?
That Dr. King, he was a gun owner.
Oh, so tell us about that. Yeah,
Dr.
2A.
Yeah. Dr. King, he owned a gun. He believed in self-defense. He's a Southerner. He's part of a long tradition of African Americans who had to carry guns
To defend themselves.
against these Ku Klux Klan members, the white terror that was spread throughout the South.
Which were members of the Democratic Party, but that's a whole nother story.
Well, the late 19th century to the 1960s, the Democratic Party, and then
We're
it
highly
switches.
racist.
It
Yes.
switches, yeah.
It didn't switch,
But-
but it's okay. We can talk about that in another episode.
That's another episode. But Dr. King, he was a gun owner, and a lot of people, they take him outside of his African American cultural identity.
Right.
When you remove him from that culture and you present him as just an American, you'll fail to see that there are certain
Like the fullness
subtleties of who he was.
Yeah.
And reshaping him as an American martyr, you sort of strip him of
his humanity.
Of his humanity,
Right.
and of his culture.
Right.
So Dr. King did not live outside of his culture. He was very much a part of
Right.
his culture. He was a black man. And
Yeah.
for me, as another African-American man, it was hard for me to identify with Dr. King.
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
Yeah, because Dr. King, he's presented as this perfect being, this
Christian book,
Christian
right?
man
Yeah.
who exuded all these high qualities. But
Yeah.
people, you read books by Abernathy and other individuals, they'll say that Dr. King had a great sense of humor.
For real?
Oh man, they said Dr. King had a great sense of humor. He would crack
Cracking
jokes
jokes?
and everything.
That's amazing.
You know, so it's like when you take him outside of his cultural bubble and then you try to present him back to black people, you're like, well, who is this guy?
So basically, now he's such an icon, they had to purify him.
They have to purify him. It's like jazz music. If a kid
Yeah, man.
today they think about jazz music, they might say Kenny G or Michael Bolton, but
Well, they
don't-
can't handle the Miles Davis.
Yeah, they can't handle the Miles Davis or the Coltrane.
Yeah.
Because it's been repackaged.
Oh, yeah.
It's been sanitized.
That's messed up
Stripped.
from its authenticity.
My sister.
So is there a third thing that you want people to know about him?
The third thing that everyone should know that in
Exactly.
1999, that the
What?
government was found guilty
What?
in the conspiracy to kill Dr. Martin Luther King.
What you talking about? 1999.
1999, when the world was talking about Y2K and all these other
I remember
things.
that.
Yeah.
Everything's gonna end. The
that
computers
panic-
can't.
in that
we
panic-
Understand? I remember that.
panic in December, they
We gotta,
snuck
like-
it in. And as Coretta Scott King said, I think that if people will look at the evidence that we have, it's conclusive. And I think the Justice Department has a responsibility to do what it feels is the right thing to do, the just thing to do. That basically, with 6 blacks and 6 whites deliberated for 3 hours before returning the verdict in the civil rights lawsuit brought by the King family, that the government was responsible for facilitating this error, this conspiracy that led to the assassination of Dr. King.
So let me get this right. In 1999,
Yes.
the government was found. The United States government, the United States federal government, was found guilty for assassinating MLK.
A cover-up following the assassination in Memphis in 1968 involved the FBI, the CIA, the media, and Army intelligence, as well as many state and city officials.
Wow. And so from 1999 to what we are at 2018,
It's a blip
Even
on the
e-
radar.
right. So that goes to our next question. So you ready for the next question?
What's that?
Why do you think the message changed? If somebody say elevator pitch, this is what you need to know about MLK in his entirety, in his fullness, what would that be? And then why is that message not the message that we know about?
I would say that MLK, he was not only a radical change for American society, but he was also a proper representation of what positive leadership looks like.
Which is?
Someone who's a truth teller in all its ugliness. At the Riverside Church in 1967, Dr. King gave an anti-war speech. April 4th, 1967. Let's think about this. So he gives this anti-Vietnam speech in which he links militarization with racism, with segregation and the oppression of African Americans here. And
With the military industrial intelligence complex.
Correct. And how the people in Vietnam are being oppressed by the same entity. Like Johnson, we can't ramp up a war to defeat the Viet Cong, and then we have a war on poverty here, and then we're saying that we're passing legislation for voting and civil rights here, but you're trying to
Oppress people over
there and take away their plight for their own self-determination. So, as Tavis Smiley points out in this book, The Death of a King, 1967 was the most unpopular year for Dr. King.
Okay.
Because you had black people that said, look, Johnson, he did right by us. He passed his legislation.
Well, that
Why
was
are you
just-
talking? Why
that
are you
was,
talking about him?
the okey doke right there.
that was
That's all right.
Yeah. Why are you talking about him? So, Dr.
So they
King's-
basically, because they were getting this legislation, which, by the way, Republicans actually were pushing initially, and Johnson was like, okay, well, I need to win, so I'm going to go back on my racist ways and then give these to these people so that what they would say they'd be voting Democrat 50 years because of this.
That's
what happened, right?
That's the quote that he's famous.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so in that year, we got to go back to 1967
Yeah.
and to see the ascension of Johnson's image and the descension of MLK's in the black community or also the community in general.
Well, in 1967, you have doves and hawks. You know,
Yeah.
doves are people who are for peace, and
Yeah.
hawks are people who are out for war.
Yeah, so the Hawks would be like Hillary Clinton, right?
There you go.
Anyway.
There you go. There you go.
Keeping it relevant.
There you go.
So go ahead.
So the Hawks are saying, look, Vietnam, we got to win Vietnam. Communism. We have to defeat communism. Which is also another thing that we can utilize our trajectory with how cocaine comes into the black community.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
The fight against communism. And
Really? That could be another episode. That's got to be another
Okay.
episode.
But
the
this
use of
whole
drugs on
defeat-
our community in order to pacify us and to basically...
And to fight communism.
To fight communism. Wow.
So-
mind blown. See what
yeah.
I'm saying? Like
These-
every other minute, my mind's blown.
And when you have Ronald Reagan, who testified for the House on Un-American Activities,
Right.
become the president, and who's also anti-communist. He's any way to defeat communism.
Yeah, well,
You
I'm
know,
not a fan
so-
of communism either.
Okay.
But anyway.
So, 1967,
Yeah.
Dr. King, he's very unpopular. He's basically saying, look, we don't need to go to war. You got black boys and white boys. They're fighting in Vietnam together, but they can't even be on the bus together.
yeah.
They can't even go to the same lunch counter together.
Yeah, yeah.
So black people are like, no, Dr. King, don't do that. Don't do that. You're going to make us look bad. You're going to make us look ungrateful. Boom.
Like
Also,
we're on the plantation still. Anyway, go ahead.
Begotten. We're beholden to someone that shows us a brief amount of attention, and we make it last forever. Like Keith Sweat said. But
You have to break that down for me too.
make it last forever, like Keith Sweat said.
You know, I was a little like, in
Lord
a
have-
bubble.
Lord have mercy. So they're saying, okay, we can't do that to Johnson. But Johnson, at the same time, he's mad at Dr. King because Dr. King is still pushing. He's still advocating. He's
Yeah,
agitating
for his people.
for his people. When is this legislation going to pass?
Right.
So when we get to Memphis, Tennessee, April the 3rd, 1968,
Right.
there's an injunction signed in which they're saying that King cannot speak.
Oh.
Like, a lot of people don't know that.
So basically, they were trying to suppress his free speech.
Yeah, because he came down for the I believe, the Garbage Men's Union in 1968. King is assassinated April 4th, 1968, a year to the day
Of when he spoke out
against
about Vietnam.
Vietnam in the Riverside Church.
Dang.
So when people don't have all the pieces
Right.
to the puzzle and they look at it and they say, oh, Dr. King was America's sacrifice. He loved everybody. Dr. King's dreams for all of us to love each other and be with one another. Well, Dr. King took complacent white people to task. He took complacent black people to task.
Yeah.
He took white liberals to task. He took black liberals to task. He took white conservatives to task. He took black like Dr. King. He was an individual that
You were
constantly-
talking about truth telling.
Exactly. He constantly reminds you, look, you know there's racism going on.
Right.
Look, you know there's oppression going on.
Right.
Look, we live in the most civilized land in the world. Why is there so much poverty?
Exactly.
So where do we go from here? Dr. King, he's like, I understand why these brothers are burning everything up to go look at their condition, but this is not positive energy that can be used in a way
Constructive.
for a progressive measure.
Little p progressive, not
Little
big p progressive.
Little p. Little p. So when Dr. King died, this is very instrumental because there are clips of Stokely Carmichael who's distraught. And a lot of times people, they would talk about black powers if it's not rooted in the Southern black experience because they were in Loudoun County, Alabama. The Black Panther Party was used to go against the Democratic Party in the South to galvanize a black constituency and to push black people to advocate for their self-determination in this space.
Right.
So
So you basically had the Black Panthers had its own party. You had the Republican Party.
the SNCC,
And
under
SNCC.
SNCC.
All
Under
those
SNCC, the Black Panther logo, which the Black Panther Party in Oakland would use
Uh-huh.
comes from Louds County, from the SNCC individuals who were organizing down there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
so there's a cultural
Connection.
connection to these things that's taking place.
Right. So it's like a development and evolution.
There's a development.
And then if you weren't there on the ground in the 60s,
You wouldn't understand it.
especially of how it's been written throughout
Exactly.
those years.
Exactly, because I'm a member of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, founded
Okay.
by Dr. Carter G. Woodson in
Yeah.
1915.
Shout out.
So all my listeners, make sure you join the association. You say you want to make a change in the black community,
And
and I'm
stay
going to
woke.
ask you, what's your membership?
Yeah,
what does your
right.
membership look like? What are you a member of? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not a member of the NAACP because I pretty much don't identify with the ideology and the politics, but I am a member of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALA, founded
Okay.
by Dr. Carter G. Woodson.
Nice.
But in Memphis, Tennessee, we were at a session, and you had all these individuals who had written books about the Black Power movement,
Right.
and they're going around talking about this aspect and that aspect. And there's a little black lady right there, and someone turned to her and asked her, "So, what book did you write?" And she said, "Oh no, I was just one of the members that was in Greenwood, Mississippi." Dr. King, we didn't identify with Dr. King till after he had died because we didn't realize what he actually meant and how much of a lasting, binding piece, a fixture in the whole movement that he was. And after that, we began to look back on Dr. King and some of the stuff that he said, because within that moment, we never expected for him to die like that.
Right.
But then you have this Black Power on steroids, because now you've lost, because like Huey,
Black Power
not
on
Huey,
steroids.
but like
That's what
Stokely
he
said.
said.
Stokely said you had the only individual who believed in y'all.
Right.
Like Dr. King was the ones that kept telling us to love y'all and not to be angry at y'all, and y'all killed him.
Because that's basically what we know. We know that some people feel like MLK was like a sellout, right? Because he was like all about assimilation and like desegregation and all that, but they don't realize that he was about the upliftment of his people while he would be uplifting everybody.
Well, I think a lot of people today, they get assimilation and acculturation and all these words, they try to fuse them together.
Right.
I believe what Dr. King was saying, we want look, if we live in a separate but equal society,
Right.
our separate piece is not equal to the white piece. Why don't our black high school look like the white high school?
Yeah.
That's what funding looked like.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when they're saying that they're fighting against segregation, okay, if we're saying that we're having a separate society, this was the whole premise. That's why Thurgood Marshall was able to dismantle Jim Crow. That basically, if you're going to give these people separate but equal, why doesn't this look like this?
Shout out to Howard Law.
HU.
Yes.
So if this doesn't look like that, look, this is not separate but equal.
Right.
So the government couldn't keep up financially with separate but equal.
Okay.
They didn't have the
It
money.
was too expensive
It
to
was
keep.
too expensive to keep segregation.
It always comes out with money, huh?
Exactly.
Wow.
So Dr. King, he believed in the vision of America.
Right.
And that's why Dr. King is so important, because at our best, he's what the country could be.
That more perfect union.
That more perfect union.
Yeah, full citizenship.
Full citizenship.
Absolutely.
That America is sending the moral message throughout the world that, this is what brotherhood, fraternity, and a multicultural society should look like. For
Right.
people.
Yeah, so multicultural.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's bring it back to where do we go from here? Now that we have a better perspective of what MLK really was about, how can we apply that knowledge from the true nature of MLK to what we are doing here in the 21st century?
Well, one of the things I believe that we must do is look at what took place 60, 70 years ago and what institutions they had then and what institutions we do not have today.
Like?
Our mutual aid and benevolent societies. Those organizations played a large part in the economic stimulating of black business districts. Not only did they help generate revenue, but also they helped educate black males and black females on certain conduct as it relates to ideology and norms for a community. We don't have that anymore.
So
everybody's just trying to figure it out
Right.
without a reference.
Right.
And then a lot of us, we don't know what counties we come from in the South. We don't know anything about our grandparents or our great-grandparents' lives. We're just living for today. So it's like we're not connected to anything. It's like we're wafting between acceptance and rejection from mainstream society instead of building something for ourselves.
Having a good foundation.
We got to have a good foundation.
Yeah.
Anything without a good foundation is bound to implode. And now when we look around, we see the imploding of Black America based upon its foundation and its beams being ripped out. And
people taking advantage of because we don't know our history. They're just like, look at that. And then everybody freaks out. And you're like, well, what about the context? What about the history?
People telling us what our history
Exactly.
is. You know, like you said earlier, you have Malcolm X, you have Martin Luther King, Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois. This binary narrative of Black America. We had way more leaders. We had way more political interpretations to our problem. We had way more ideologies. We had Black women who were leaders of organizations.
Right.
We had all type of individuals who were trying to carve out the best solution for Black America. We had individuals that made things happen on a local level that might not made it to the state level. And then we had other organizations that had a national impact.
Because like right now, it seems as if everybody's kind of talking down as opposed to it being organic and be community-based.
Exactly. Everyone is looking to make a national impact instead of building a local impact.
Getting their clicks up, right?
You got to click up. You got to click up first. You click up first, and then you're able to spread your ideology. You're able to move around in different places to help fill in the gaps for other people. And I believe now, since we don't focus on the institutional history of Black America, we're constantly trying to reinvent the wheel. And if we say that slavery destroyed Black people, why is it that the slaves created all of the institutions and all of the businesses, the side of towns that are being gentrified that we are losing today? The institutions we are losing today, they were built by slaves. The homes that were purchased in certain areas were purchased by Black people 2 or 3 generations ago.
Yeah, to have a footing.
Exactly. So why are we losing them today with all our quote-unquote education and progress? Why do we have no footing?
It's almost as if we've lost
become
traction.
Slaves.
Well,
we've become slaves.
Okay.
We've become slaves in a way that the slaves were never slaves.
Wow.
Because they understood who the enemy was. They understood what they would do with their freedom.
Right.
Today, we don't know what. We're constantly abandoning our community to become marginal representatives, and
like we're objectified. We're not subjects of our own nature. We're still objects.
Objects. And you know, it's disheartening when you read these things and you pretty much see the same oppression, exploitation, political manipulation. Then today.
Yeah.
It's disheartening.
Well, thank you, Professor. We're going to be talking a lot about different ideas and concepts throughout the course of these episodes, but we thought it was a good idea to start from where we needed to start.
Yeah, but Dr. King, I mean, as a kid growing up, when it was time for Black History Month, the teacher would reach inside the desk and pull out that little picture of Dr. King, a picture of George Washington Carver,
laminated,
a picture of Rosa Parks, and put them on the board. And you had Dr. King looking down with his thumb pressed against his chin, and I'm like, oh, I got to do good in this test. Dr. King is looking at me. I don't want to let him down. So
we got to do right by him and right by our
Dr.
elders.
King was a real brother, man. He had his great things about him, and he had some flaws about him, but he was real.
He was a womanizer, but whatever. Apparently, it was culturally relevant. Whatever.
He was a tangible representation.
Yeah, he's a player, but whatever.
That stuff. Look, Dr. King wasn't created in a vacuum.
Yeah. Poor Coretta.
When we talk about the Black
Coretta
church,
and her strength, strong Black woman.
I'm not gonna comment, man. You ain't gonna never have me in a trick bag.
Amen.
Yeah, whatever.
All right. Well, again, check us out next time. Thank you for checking in, and on to the next one.
On to the next one. Peace.